2 weeks from today, I'll be on my airplane. We were wondering where the chief fiscal advisor was at. He couldn't start. Good morning.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Committee on Audit, come to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Webb is excused. Commissioner Killeen.
He's right there.
Commissioner Clark Coleman. Here. Commissioner Dobb.
Here.
Chair Basham.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Next item.
B, approve of the January 15, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Is there support? Been moved and supported. Any conversation? Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item.
C, unfinished business. There is none.
All right, next item.
D1, under new business, communication from Marcella Cora, Wayne County Legislative Auditor General, forwarding the Office of Legislative Auditor General's assessment for the Department of Public Services Division of Engineering Permits Office Performance Audit Report.
I'd like to welcome the Auditor General, Ms. Cora, and her staff and her guest, and could you please,
Marcy Cora, Auditor General, and we have guests if they could join us at the table. And if staff could introduce themselves first.
Mike Sosnowski, Audit Manager.
Tequila Allen, Principal Senior Auditor.
Regina Lee, Senior Auditor.
And if guests could introduce themselves too.
just hit the little green button.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Shawnee DeBerry, Director of Administration for the Department of Public Services.
Welcome.
Good morning, Elmika Steele, Deputy Director, Department of Public Services.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What you have before you today is a corrective action plan and the Auditor General's assessment for our report we did on the Department of Public Services Division of Engineering Permits Office. I'm going to turn it over to the team, and they'll go through the corrective action plan, our assessment.
What we have here is the corrective action plan that was submitted by DPS. The original engagement had 16 recommendations contained in it. We asked for corrective action for all 16. Our analysis and review disclosed that management took sufficient action to address 6 of the recommendations, and the remaining 10 are considered in process. Therefore, a follow-up review is deemed necessary. And I'll turn this over to Tequila Allen.
And if I could just add something to this too. This is one corrective action plan that I believe it worked the way a corrective action plan should work in our assessment. There was initially many of the recommendations that looked like they may not have been implemented, but the audit team went back out and worked with DPS and Suzanne from Finance, and they were able to get some resolutions to the recommendation. Though they may not be implemented yet, there is a plan to have a process so they will be implemented. I think this is exactly how it should work.
It's good to see us rowing together. Thank you.
Recommendation 2017-02. The OAG recommends a review of the permit manual to make necessary updates, in addition to working with the Department of Information Technology to ensure the URLs contained within the Wayne County Rules, Specifications, and Procedures for Construction Permits Manual are valid and active. In our assessment, DPS management has identified the URLs to be removed from the permit manual and will note the manual's current revision date. DPS management will also work with the Department of Information Technology to have the revised manual uploaded to the website in the near future.
And to that point, to the department, do you have a time specific when that'll be done?
We're actually awaiting word from council, a corporation council, just to make sure that we don't need commission approval just by making a revision date. So we don't want to make changes to it until we know for sure. We don't want to put the revised date on
Sure.
the, yes,
So is there anything we can do, let us know, but so that helps you,
yes.
Ms. Cora?
And just so I can add, we're only going to go through the recommendations that are in process. The ones that are implemented, we're just going to skip those.
Okay, great.
All right. Recommendation 3A, 2017-3A. The OAG recommends that DPS management review and revise the plan review cost schedule to ensure it reflects their current cost of operations. DPS management stated that based on an informal review, fees charged on the plan review cost schedule exceeded the amount of labor costs associated with performing a plan review. We confirmed that going forward, a formal review will be conducted prior to the end of this fiscal year to ensure their fees reflect the current cost of operations. Recommendation 2017-3B, the OAG recommends that DPS management submit the revised cost to the Wayne County Commission for approval and amendment to the fee ordinance. Based on the action taken in 2017-3A, no change to the fee structure is required at this time. However, if a change is required in the future, DPS management will submit the revised cost to the Wayne County Commission for approval and amendment to the county's fee ordinance.
Commissioner Dobb has a comment, question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you anticipate any changes in the fee structure?
Susanna Buzzini, the Director of Finance for DPS Finance, or DPS. Right now, with us not getting any raises and our health and fringes going down versus up, there's no, we kind of did an informal calculation, we're still in the right range. So I don't anticipate, until our costs go up, until the salary costs, it's all labor related. So until we really show a significant increase in there, our fee structure is pretty much sufficient to cover the costs of the engineers that are going out and doing the actual reviews on the permits. That's what the cost is from. It's the labor costs.
Thank you.
So I guess the answer, short answer is no.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, you done?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Clean has a question, comment?
Yeah, as long as we're on the schedule here. I would actually encourage you to look at some minimal raises, 2% or something. I believe it's got to be 6-7 years ago, we changed the what we were charging for permits and all of that out there. Are we talking about the same fee schedule, like what we're charging
Right,
for
this would be
inspections and?
correct.
Yeah, it
And
was about
it's-
6-7
right.
years ago. We made some changes to that. And that was the first time like in a decade and maybe more. And so when the schedule changed, there was sticker shock. And commissioners are getting calls from restaurants and all that kind of stuff, right? I've been paying $250, all of a sudden it's $325 WTF, you know. And I thought at the time that probably the way to deal with it is not wait another 10, 12 years and then smack people again, right? But have more of a every few years bump it 1% or 2%, so we don't have sticker shock out there. And I understand what you're saying about your fees and all that kind of stuff that you're trying to match it to. But I would just, consider that maybe we want to go 1% or 2% and not wait and then, come back 5 years from now, go, oh my God, we got to raise everything 10, 15% or something. So I'm just laying that out. I'm fully supportive of a kind of approach like that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Please proceed.
All right. Moving on to recommendation 2017-3C. The OAG recommends that DPS management periodically perform an analysis to determine whether the fee amount is appropriate. DPS management indicated that a cursory review a review of fees charged by Macomb, Oakland, and Washtenaw counties was performed in order to determine whether fees charged by Wayne County are comparable. However, the review was not documented. Based on discussions with DPS management, a formal documented fee analysis will be performed and submitted to the OAG by the end of February 2020. Recommendation 2017-4A. The OAG recommends that DPS Finance, Management, and Budget establish a financial report that captures the revenues and expenditures for the DPS Permits Office to enhance the financial accountability over this county function. Based on discussions with DPS management, the Permit Licensing and Land System, or PLL system, will be able to track the amount received for each permit, as well as track the cost of the time spent and materials used to generate each permit. However, it will not be able to generate a report that captures all revenue and expenses for the permit office as a whole. In addition, DPS Permits Office is unable to itemize expenditures and revenue from J.D. Edwards because all DPS engineering revenues and expenditures are captured on an aggregate basis. DPS management stated they will contact M&B to request this functionality in the new enterprise resource planning system. It is hoped that there can be integration between the ERP and the PLL systems that will provide more detailed financial reporting. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ms. Lee, to continue on with the recommendations.
Recommendation 2017-04B. The Auditor General recommended DPS senior management establish performance measures and report for the DPS Permits Office to assist with sound budgetary decision-making, ensuring the function is meeting its mandated services and meeting the strategic business objective. Our assessment, discussions with management, DPS management stated quarterly budget to actual reports are prepared at the division level. And since the DPS Permit Office is part of the engineering division, those are revenues and expenditures are included on an aggregate basis. The new permit license and landing system will require an upgrade once the system is implemented to generate budget to actual reports. DPS will request an upgrade for the system in 2021. DPS management will request M&B new enterprise resource planning system will have integration functionality with DPS PLL system and hopes to provide more detailed financial reporting.
Commissioner Dobb has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have to wait until fiscal year 2021 to get this information, these reports, to provide the expenditure and revenue reports for the permit office. Is that correct?
So the way our Wayne County structure is, the Department of Public Services have their divisions. Every division is a separate business unit. Engineering division is one of those separate business units. Within the engineering division is the permit office. It's a small piece of the entire division. It's not a separate business unit. And so, like, if they buy supplies for the engineers, it goes under supplies for engineering. It doesn't go under the permit office. There's 3 units over at FEO, which is the field engineering office. There's 2 or 3 units over here at 400 Monroe. So within engineering, you've got like 5 units. And if we did that to that level at Wayne County as a whole, you would have, if we have too many business units that it is, you will have like that many more business units. So to actually get it down to that level, permit office is not a separate business unit. So I don't want to say we will never have that level of detail, but there's a couple things going on. First of all, with the new PLL system, the hope is that at minimum, we can capture the permit expenditures and the revenues going in and out for the permits. But it's not going to cover the entire permit area, the overhead and all of that. But we should be able to at least track, the revenue coming in for the permit, the cost of reviewing the permit on a financial reporting basis with the PLL system. The second thing that we're trying to do, and I've been in some of the committees for the ERP, and DOIT has actually told the guys with Cherry Road that we need to look at the PLL system and see how it can integrate with J.D. Edwards, because currently our central accounting office is manually going through the information and inputting it into J.D. Edwards. So that would be another plus. So that at least that information is integrated with J.D. Edwards, so the information automatically gets uploaded. The third issue is the issue that I was just talking about where, we can't get that level of detail for field engineering. I'm not sure yet how the ERP system is going to work. If you can sub-track beyond the business unit in a more efficient manner with the ERP system, then we will look to do that, because it would be nice. I actually get complaints from our divisions that said, we can't control our budget because we don't know how much we get because they're under this umbrella. So if it's possible in the ERP system to get down to that level, absolutely, we have no problem doing it. But right now with our current system and the way the structure works with Wayne County, it can't, we just can't get to that level unless we manually sit and start tracking everything. We don't have the manpower to do something like that. I don't know what the new ERP system will do, and I don't know if we can get to that point. It would be nice, though. I agree 100%.
So,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mark?
Through the chair, Suzanne, can I ask a question about that? Most of the time, when organizations cannot get that granular with detail, and in this case, we have a business unit, but we have subdivisions within that unit. At least periodically, what they do is what's referred to as a functional analysis, a functional allocation of expenditures between. So you have one pot of expenditure and you want to allocate it to 5 different functions. So you look at, you allocate it based on revenue or labor cost or some unit of allocation periodically, just to do an evaluation to see whether each component of that business unit is meeting its objectives in regards to revenue, expenditure, or services, or something of that sort. I mean, are you able to do something like that on an
No, we
annual-
don't even budget at that level. Like, we don't have that level of detail. It's not being tracked. Like, for example, our global office supplies. Engineering division is tracked. We're doing that at the
All right,
DPS
so
level.
global office supplies, the way I would functionally allocate that would probably be based on headcount. So you look at the headcount of each unit that you want to allocate it to, and just go through each expenditure and say, okay, we're going to allocate this one based on.
That's a time-consuming process. Don't forget, we got all of DPS. Within just engineering, it's 5 or 6 units. 7 units. So now you got roads, maintenance, you've got DPS, like we do it with DPS admin, and we allocate to all the units.
Are you guys looking at the new chart of accounts to see if you can get more granular in a way that's not?
Matt has sent us that, but I mean, I would really like to see to get it to that level in the ERP system. But with the current structure that we have, that would be a manual, like, time-consuming
I agree with you.
process.
Under the current structure, it's out of the question. You don't even want to change J.D. Edwards right now or do
Right.
anything to even touch it because it'll fall apart on you.
Yes, we know. We've had a few scares.
Don't look at it.
Well, and speaking of that, to the auditors, you think once we change our software to where their import-exports are connected better, do you think that will resolve some of these issues?
I would hope it would, but it's just going to depend on the capabilities of the ERP system and what level it goes down to.
So I think we all want the same thing, it's
Yeah.
just a matter of,
Yeah. And to be honest with you, right now, our priority with the ERP system is, the reason we're at where we're at with J.D. Edwards and PeopleSoft is because of all the customizations in the system. And 90% of those customizations are because of DPS. We have a very detailed work order system. The way we input time and labor, our equipment has to be tracked. There's so much level of detail that has to be tracked and reported to MDOT. And so right now, my main priority is at minimum to make sure this ERP system is going to be able to work to that level of detail so we can report to MDOT and get our money. But those things are all on our radar. But I have to get the as-is stuff, in the system, because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to report to MDOT. So this is, it's really difficult, because I do agree with the overall consensus that we do not want to customize ERP, because then we'll go right back where we're at. The reason we don't want to customize is because every time Oracle will have an upgrade, you won't be able to automatically upgrade because you got customizations in the system. And the company themselves won't recognize your system because they've customized it. So we're trying to find alternative solutions and different modules within the system to make sure that we meet our needs without customizing. Because you want to be able to automatically upgrade, and then we don't run into this problem anymore.
Ms. Cora?
I think what I heard Suzanne saying too, that with the PLL system, if they can get some level of detail for a unit as far as labor, revenues, and expenditures, then maybe that'll get them closer to where they need to be, and then maybe just an allocation of the other expenditures, but at least they're going to get closer with the labor piece
Yeah.
and revenue.
And but that would just be the labor of the
That-
actual
yeah.
processing the
Right,
permits.
right, yes.
So, but we are aware of it. I'm of that mindset. I'm a detailed person, but, you got to work with what you have, and we got to do the cost benefit too. But we do monitor the engineering division separately. We were supposed to have our budget to actual meeting yesterday. I had to postpone it till today. Quarterly meetings, reviewing with them, where are we at, what are we doing? So, I mean, it's being monitored. The things that aren't being monitored at the permit level is really like supplies or overhead, like that type of stuff. But it's being monitored at the engineering level.
Please proceed.
Recommendation 2017-5A. The OAG recommends that DPS permits office adheres to Wayne County rules, specifications, and procedures for construction permits manual, Rule 2.19.1 through 2.19.5, in order to notify permit holders of impending permit expiration within 30 days of the expiration date and initiate any required actions. Based on discussions with DPS management, the PLL system scheduled for rollout in June of 2020 will require an upgrade to automatically notify permit holders of expiring permits through automatically generated emails.
And I guess to that point, if it expires like for 2 years, shouldn't that money go to the county, or is the state an impingement on that? What can we do to move this along?
So we are actually in the process of working with Corporation Counsel on that question of what happens when we have these type of scenarios where there are funds there. In some cases, maybe a developer went out of business, went bankrupt, things like that. There are that's still being reviewed in terms of what we would be able to do, and then it may vary depending on the circumstance.
But there's a significant amount of money there that actually could be probably better utilized if we could find some commonality. If the holdup is the state, we actually have, Wayne County has state lobbyists and those sorts of folks, plus, but, I mean, anything we can do, we're not over here and you're over here.
I'm not aware at the moment that there's a state holdup with it. I think it is just determining legally what rights or responsibilities there would be for the county to retain it, and under what circumstances. If by retaining it, we may be then taking on some responsibility. Let's say if a developer went out of business and we're holding those funds and we retain it, will we then have some responsibility to go in and start shoring up, areas or things that had not been finished to sort of try to, what we can use those funds for. We just want to make sure that if we retain it, that we know exactly how we can use those funds going forward.
But then when an outside contractor signs an agreement with the county, isn't that in the contract?
There is, I don't recall there being express language in the permit that addresses that specific issue. You may be able to make some argument that it's implicit, but we obviously, like I said, we want to proceed cautiously, which is why we're having Corporation Counsel first give a review and then give us the advice on exactly what the options are.
Well, we appreciate that because, again, that's significant, I think, significant amount of money that could be used for the county. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're the skunk at the picnic. We're trying to find that extra penny. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Please proceed.
Recommendation 2017-5B. The OAG recommends that DPS Permits Office should implement a process to manually generate an impending expiring permits report on a monthly basis for review. Based on discussion with DPS management, due to staff constraints, DPS Permits Office does not currently have the ability to manually notify current permit holders of expiring permits. The upgraded PLL system will have the capability to automatically generate emails to notify permit holders of expiring permits. (2017-7A).
Sorry, Ms. Cord, did you have a comment?
No, I was just saying we're moving on to page 8.
Oh, okay.
The OAG's office recommend that DPS Finance and Management and Budget collaborate their efforts to determine ultimately the amount of inspection fees that should be retained by the county through the forfeiture process, and as a last resort, those fees that cannot be retained or returned to the permit holders are escheated to the state. Based on responses from DPS Management, DPS Management has assigned a staff member to meet with M&B and Corporation Counsel to determine the steps involved in the forfeiture and escheatment process. Phase 1 was scheduled to begin in mid-December of 2019. Management could not give a date for the entire project completion until Phase 1 is completed.
Ms. Cora?
This is kind of what we're already talking about, but this is one where right now there's like $18.8 million in the balance right now. The last resort we want to do is have to cheat any money to the state, so I think it's good the Corporation Council is working with DPS to see how some of this money can be appropriately retained by the county.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleen?
18.8 million, okay. Yeah, and that's, looks like it's a fairly big increase over previous years. So what is this a fee for?
So when the permit holders place their, we call it like a bond, or they place a deposit, I guess is another way to look at it. And then as the staff works against it, they're charging time to a particular permit. So these are scenarios where, let's say somebody started a process, I'm just making up a year, 2010, and it's 2020, and there's, maybe we have notified them that there were things that they needed to do with respect to their plan review, and we have since not heard back from that particular firm or company. So those funds are there. I don't recall, Suzanne, and maybe you can confirm if that's interest compounding with it.
Well, I don't want to go down that road.
Okay.
These
No,
are
but what I did-
permits to do what?
I'm sorry?
These are permits to do what?
These are when an individual comes to the permit office for a plan review, construction related, there's a process where their plans are reviewed by the permit engineers, and then ultimately a permit is issued to them. And then we have scenarios, as we were just describing a few minutes ago, where, let's say you had a construction company that may have started that process, but the project never was
Never went
completed.
anywhere.
Right, correct.
So this is both for new building and for rehabbing buildings?
Yes, it could be for a new.
Driveway.
Right, no, but I'm saying he was asking for new, or if it was a brand new,
Yeah.
straight up from the ground,
Hole
or
in
if it
the
was
ground,
something
yeah.
where they were upgrading an existing facility.
So is this some sort of measure of the amount of construction activity that goes on in Wayne County? I
I would
can
not
look
say
at our
it is a
permits.
measure, because it is, if there will be an impact to a Wayne County owner operate, like for example, our road system, if it's gonna,
Right.
if it would interfere with our road right of way, though there are certain criteria for
Oh, I
when an
gotcha.
individual must get a permit. So it's not
It's not
any-
everything, right?
Correct,
It's specific to, okay.
correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
We have an expert that wants to comment on your question.
In case you had any questions.
Uh-oh.
Can you introduce
We need
yourself for
non-experts
the
then to
record?
come tell us about things.
Elizabeth Taylor with Wayne County DPS Engineering Division.
I always liked Elizabeth Taylor.
Right?
Please proceed.
Well, so compounding what Almika was saying, basically these are permits that range from anything from as simplistic as a driveway approach to as complex as an addition to a
Onto
Ford
a
assembly
county
plant.
street.
Oh yeah, anything in the right of
Yeah,
way.
well, that's why I was trying to get at, is this a measure of economic activity as far as building goes? In a general sense, it's not.
Not,
It's
it would
things
not
that
be
are
considered all
Right, this is
inclusive,
just things
everything.
specific to,
Yeah.
you're
Right, 'cause-
on, you're next to whatever county
Yeah.
property, and you need to do certain things. Okay,
So it's more of a function of what we call these legacy permits that don't
right.
that we can't release the funds for.
No, I
Because,
got
yeah.
that part of it. I was just wondering about them. When I saw it's really gone up a lot, You know, because we have had more building, right?
Okay, oh, I see, you're
And now we're
relating
seeing-
it to, does this mean
Well, yeah, and
more-
see, and now we're seeing like downtown, they're scaling back some projects because construction costs are rising and there's not enough skilled trades out there for everything that people are trying to do. So the Hudson's building has been scaled back, other things that they're, so when I saw this, I thought, is this a measure of economic activity? But it's not in a broad sense. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Please proceed. Oh.
If I could just add, this $18 million balance includes current permits.
Yeah.
That's the balance in the account. So that's not the amount that we can forfeit or a sheet that we're looking at. That's not the total amount. There's a significant amount in here, but it's not the full 18 million.
Good to know. Scratch that, Mark.
Yes.
Recommendation 2017-7B. The OAG recommend that the county implements a process to ensure inspections are performed when a project is completed and develop a dormant permit notification process. Based on discussion with DPS management, DPS Permits Office has attempted to contact a numerous amount of dormant permit holders unsuccessfully. DPS management is collaborating with M&B and Corporation Counsel to develop a process to reduce the number of dormant permits and retain the fees owed to the county of Wayne.
Okay.
And that
I'm
concludes
sorry.
our presentation.
Commissioner Dobb has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just give us a very brief overview of the current process of contacting the dormant permit holders?
So currently, what will happen is, and Beth, you will help to add in some of the details, but every applicant is assigned a plan review number, and that plan review is assigned to a particular engineer who then monitors that file. What we're trying to get to is a process where some things will happen automatically, you know, as to generate automatically. But at the moment, it would be the individual plan review engineer who will be going back, touching file. Oh, you know, let me check on this. I haven't heard back from this individual. And then letters would be generated at that point to those individuals. We want to get to a process where that is automated so that it is occurring on a set schedule and not necessarily just when that engineer is going back and touching that file again.
Do you have, like, let's say if a letter goes out and it comes back, like mail return, is there a process of looking for a new mailing address, or is a phone call made or an email sent?
That is actually one of the things that we are trying to work through with Corporation Counsel, because typically, I'm just using an example, like you said, someone's out of business, we've tried calling them, the mail's returned. There are often, the Corporation Counsel has certain legal tools, like when you're trying to serve someone that DPS does not have in-house. So we're trying to develop a process, so when that occurs in the process, we would be able to get some assistance there with some of the tools, the legal tools that they have for locating individuals. There's certain information you have to input in the systems, and then there's also certain criteria that you have to give for why you're accessing a certain database that may give you certain personal information on an individual, so that therefore you can find out where are they currently. We haven't so much, we've had some issues where maybe you say, well, where is this person? It's really more of a situation, what happens when the company's out of business? It just doesn't exist anymore. That's really more of an issue for us as opposed to just finding someone. It's the company that says, hey, I don't exist anymore. I'm not in business, or, you know, I don't have my LLC anymore. It's you know, they let it lapse, those types of things.
Right, yeah, and I know this type of work takes a lot of time and work, so I would think that we would need, you know, a separate division, a department, you know, people devoted to just that sort of thing, tracking
Right.
people down, and
Right.
so, okay, thank you.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank my staff and the staff from DPS and M&B Finance for getting the corrective action plan where it needs to be, and seeing some processes where we're going to get recommendations implemented.
Commissioner Kleen?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before we receive and file this, I want to go back to the schedule just for a minute, the fees. So what we're talking about here for permits is everything from construction to the fee schedule for inspecting swimming pools.
So we
Hot
don't.
dog stands
yeah,
at
So that is actually a
Is that a
different
separate-
department. Yes, yes.
It's a separate
Yeah, you're
fee
thinking about
schedule.
on the environmental health side.
Okay.
Yep, separate schedule.
So this schedule only involves
These are
the
limited.
ones we're talking.
Right, so these are limited to instances of construction that relates to county-owned or operated
Okay,
infrastructure.
because I know, like, you know, you got to go to engineering, right? Like on the east side, you know, we got that Moros Greenway, right? That folks did on that street, the median, you know, and there was permitting and the office involved. And it was engineering. But it's not that fee schedule we're talking about here.
No, we're
See,
not.
I got that
Okay.
drift as we were going. My other comments were for the other fee schedule,
Okay,
right?
yes,
Not
not for what
to
we're
this one.
referring to.
But these fees go directly to your department, right? They go right
Yes.
back into the department. It's not like you got to send them to upstairs and they put it in the general
Right, no.
cash
no.
pool and then you got to beg for it
Right.
back.
Yes.
At budget time, it goes directly to you, all
Yes.
the fees.
When you, just, I want to be careful,
Yeah.
when you say all the, meaning related to the DPS engineering.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, and including the other fee schedule, like restaurant inspections.
No, that's what I was saying.
Okay,
That's
all right,
totally
all right.
separate
So
department.
this one
Yes.
is your money?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that one is in.
Thanks for the
Health and
clarification.
Human Services.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Environmental
Ms.
health,
Coral?
yeah.
But the concept is similar though, because we want to make sure the fees that we're getting for all these construction is covering the cost of the.
Oh, absolutely. Right, yeah, it is still.
So, before we vote on this, I'd like to thank the doctor and Suzanne, Amika, and Elizabeth Taylor, and everybody else that worked with the auditors to actually get us to rowing in the same direction. So I think we found a lot of common ground with this audit, so, Ms. Corey, you got a comment? Okay, is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
That's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
There are none, unless, there are none.
F, public comments.
Mr. Abbo, you got any public comments?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, any public comments? Any public comments? Next item.
Adjournment.
Is there a motion? Been moved and supported, that was quick. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you.